welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. And today's rant is one of those art debates that refuse to die. Tracing versus copying versus referencing. Every time this comes up online, it's a literal war zone. Some people are screaming that tracing is theft, others are saying referencing is cheating. Then there's that gray middle ground that no one can agree on. So let's break it down properly. What's the difference between tracing, copying, and referencing? When is it okay, and when does it cross the line? Why does this topic always cause so much drama? Grab a snack, settle in, and let's rant while I work on the speed paint. I'm gonna be real with you. I was so confused about the difference between copying and referencing for a very long time, and even like when I was researching this video. Like, if I take a hairstyle from one photo and a shirt from another for a piece or a character I'm creating, is that copying or is that referencing? And I literally could not pin this down. So I actually talked this over with my friend Turtle Cakes, which I have his stuff linked down below if you are interested in checking out some of his stuff. And he also happens to be classically trained in art. He helped me out so much with these definitions, and honestly, in a lot of communities, like the furry communities, these terms are so skewed or misused. Like, people will call something copying when it's taking basic inspiration. So I wanted to get clear definitions before diving in. So this debate isn't new. I remember back in the DeviantArt days that if somebody got caught tracing, it was like a courtroom drama. But now we have TikTok callouts, Twitter threads, and YouTube essays all covering the same thing. The reason why it sticks is because artists care deeply about originality. Artists spend years practicing, failing, and finally getting things right. So when it looks like someone skipped all that hard work, it feels unfair. Tracing, copying, references, they're all just tools. They aren't evil on their own. The differences come from the intent and the honesty behind it. Let's start with referencing because it's the most misunderstood. Referencing is when you look at something to understand it, like a photo, an object, or another drawing. Then you use that understanding to guide your own art. You're not copying the lines, you're studying it. Like, if I want to draw a cat sitting funny, I'll pull up like 5 photos of cats and use those as a guide. If I want to paint a sunset, I'll grab some references of skies. You're building your knowledge, not stealing. Even professional artists reference. Painters have live models. Animators use footage. Even Da Vinci dissected cadavers to understand the anatomy. No one just magically knew how to draw everything. So if anyone tells you your referencing is cheating, they're wrong and they're probably not artists. Please use references when you're learning how to draw and even when you become pro status, because everybody uses them. Now, copying is where things get kind of fuzzy. Copying is when you're not just studying, you're borrowing specific elements and trying to replicate them. Like, if I love the way an anime character's hair is drawn and I keep the picture open while I'm trying to replicate the exact hair shape, that's technically copying. Or if I grab a shirt design from Pinterest and try to put it on my character, again, that is technically copying. It's not tracing line for line, but you're still lifting recognizable parts from someone else's work. And honestly, copying can be useful practice. I still kind of do that now. I cannot draw hands for the life of me, so I'll go to Pinterest and try to find hands and try to replicate them. But copying becomes more of an issue when you do it so much that your final piece isn't really yours anymore. And I think it's more of an issue that if your final piece looks like someone else's art stuff, but if it's just straight up copying one person's piece, that's where things get really tricky and people are going to notice. So copying isn't evil, but it's best when it's either for practice or when you mix and transform what you borrow into something new, if that makes any sense. Like I said, copying is kind of like a weird middle ground. And for the big one, and probably the most controversial, tracing. Tracing is directly going line for line over another image. No guessing, no interpreting, just following exactly. On its own, tracing can be a fantastic tool. I do it myself. Here's an example of an art piece that I quote unquote traced, but I was doing this to like learn about drawing anime people, and I saw that the people that animate Naruto put under hair shadows, which I never thought of doing. So I started adding that to future pieces. I've also been tracing over other anime eye styles to kind of learn to see how they're doing it, and then I'll go and practice that after I've learned how to draw it. It's teaching hand-eye coordination, and it can help you understand the proportions or line flow. It's like a musician practicing scales or someone that's in sports doing drills. The controversy comes when people post traced work without credit, or worse, sell it as a commission. That's when it stops being a tool and becomes theft. As long as you are learning something from it and then trying to better your own art, then that's kind of when it's okay. So like, if you're tracing in your sketchbook to learn, totally fine, because no one's seeing that. Unless you post it, then you really need to credit the source, because you're gonna have a bunch of angry people with their torches and pitchforks knocking at your door saying, yo, what's up? And then also tracing and trying to sell that, that's a whole other thing. Please don't do that. People will be mad at you. Now, I spoke with my internet buddy, Turtle Cakes. We were pretty much talking about this, and they broke it down in a way that honestly made the whole debate click for me. So like, tracing is going line for line, brushstroke for brushstroke, usually without credit. Pretty much they said tracing often gives 0 credit to the original, and it feels very exploitative. Then copying is pretty much creating the same exact piece and idea purposely from another artist without adding something unique or transformative. This is usually done in a way that's kind of spiteful or dismissive of the original creator. Basically, you're redrawing their piece stroke for stroke and pretend like it's yours. That's pretty much copying at its worst. Then the next one they were talking about was heavy referencing, which is when you're using another piece as a learning tool. You're pretty much leaning heavily on the original piece, but your goal is to learn and not steal. And then finally, you have referencing, which is when you're taking inspiration. Like, you might like how someone shades their hair and try to shade yours in a similar style, but you're not copying the exact shapes. I love this breakdown because it shows that there are layers to all of this. It's not just good versus evil, and each one has its own place depending on the context. And that right there is why people argue. If you're honest about what you're doing, it's usually fine. If you say, yeah, I heavily referenced this painting to practice, most people are not going to care. But if you're saying this is my original work when you actually traced it, that's when the pitchforks come out. Artists don't hate beginners, they just hate dishonesty. And tracing without credit or copying out of spite feels very dishonest. That's why this debate will probably never die. At the end of the day, these are all tools in an art toolbox, but these tools can be misused. If you're transparent and respectful, you're fine. If you're being sneaky about it, that's when people are going to call you out, and you have the TikToks, the Twitter threads, and the YouTube videos being made about you. So if you're just starting out, here are my tips. These are based on things that I'm doing. Build Pinterest boards for references. Try drawing from real life when you can. Like, I love drawing my cat. Copy old masters or anime screenshots for practice, but label them as studies. And if you're struggling with something like getting a pose or a certain something, then it's okay to trace, but trace to where you are understanding the line flow and the shapes of what you're drawing, and then redraw it freehand to test what you've learned. The point isn't to avoid these methods, it's to use them responsibly so you can actually grow as an artist. So yeah, copying, tracing, referencing, they're all different, they all have their place, but none of them are evil by themselves. The drama only starts when people pretend they didn't use them, or when they exploit other people's work for clout or money. Anyways, that's my rant. Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. And anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Adios!